I'm Brittany. This is Moran, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch gay things. I was literally sitting here so wrapped up in what you guys were gonna name the new bird in the Gaywatch break room, and I was like, wait, I have a stream I should be doing right now. Hello. Hi. We're on page 157 in chapter 168 of volume 5 of Erha as we continue to read through this series. A lot of terrible things have been happening and a lot of terrible reveals have been happening. We still don't really know. Like, we know these two, Nangonglu and, oh shit, what was the other guy's name? Shuanglin, are basically, like, kind of together, the, fake Gochen, but one of them, I'm kind of thinking Shuanglin, is has got to be whoever it is that was also reborn. But we haven't really, we've gotten some hints because Meat Bun is a shifty bitch. We've gotten some very pointed directions, but then it's pointed us in a couple of different directions. So who can really be sure? But we're here and I'm just waiting at any given moment for any given line to kind of make it official, to tell me who the reborn is, who can memory wipe and has the water and is a water bitch and all of that. So the chapter is called Shizun, Someone's Messing with the Body, which the body being the guy that they absolutely dicked over, whose name immediately escapes me. But we just get to keep going, and this just gets to keep happening to me. So I'm gonna pull Moran a little bit closer over here. Within the illusory scene, Shanglin's eyes widened. Many of those watching followed suit. Moran had a vague feeling that something wasn't right. He'd lived 2 lifetimes, and when he considered this conversation in the context of what he knew from the past life, some thought-provoking details emerged. He had been aware of Yuewangshi's feelings for Nangongsa for 2 reasons. In the past lifetime, before Yuewangshi died, she expressed her wish to be buried with Nangongsa. Yuewangshi's identity as a woman had also been common knowledge before then, because Nangonglu himself had arranged for her to marry Nangongsa. It was clear now that Nangongsa's father had been seeking a dual cultivation vessel for his son. But not long after the betrothal, Nangongsa had met an unexpected end, and while Yuewangshi had lived on, Moran couldn't help wondering if Nangongsa's death back then had been entirely coincidental. I'd say not, he thought. In the illusion, Shanglin's hands balled into fists. His smile remained, but his tone grew chilly. You want little Yuzu to marry Asa? She's the best choice. How so? Shuanglin laughed. You wanted to train her as the commander of the Shadow Guard, so you turned her into what she is now, neither man nor woman. Now you want to give her to Ser? Aren't you worried that Ser will scorn her? He's actually none too pleased about it. I used to see him chatting and laughing with Yuewangshi all the time, and he's always been good to her, so I thought he would accept it. But when I told him, he was furious. He said he doesn't like Yuewangshi at all. He was just looking out for her because it's tough being a girl in the Shadow Guard. He refused the engagement. Or maybe he didn't want to, drain her like a battery. Shuanglin was silent. But how could I allow it? He got into a huge row with me, saying I don't take his decisions seriously, that I'm arranging his life as I please. And he's been avoiding Yuewangshi ever since. These days, he wants nothing to do with her. The more I try to bring him around, the worse his attitude. Now he even accuses me of siding with Yuewangshi. The boy doesn't know what's good for him. Nangonglu fumed. Is he rejecting her because he doesn't like her looks? If the previous sect leader suddenly told you to marry a woman you didn't care for, would you do it? Shuanglin asked, quite sensibly. I doubt it's a question of looks. You really don't respect him at all. He's too shallow. If he's going to take a wife, he might as well pick a useful and virtuous one. If it's pretty girls he's after, nothing's stopping him from taking a concubine after his health is stable. Nangonglu sighed. It's my fault for not, he coughed, for not recognizing Yuangshi's feelings for Saer earlier. If she still looked the way she used to, Saer would definitely like her. That's preposterous, said Shuanglin. Saer still wouldn't accept it. Then he'd rather die? Dual cultivating with a man with an unstable spiritual core like this will be agonizing. If he married an ordinary woman, she couldn't withstand it. Nangonglu took a deep breath. But Yuangshi is willing, because she loves him. She can take it. What do you mean she's willing? I've asked her. What? That's also Shu Shuanglin's next. That's his reply. Uh-huh. I've asked her. I've already talked to her about this, Nangonglu said. She worries more for Saer's affliction than her own life. Shu Shuanglin lowered his head in silence, his thoughts inscrutable. That girl is a fool, he said after a long pause. By this point, Moran was near certain. There was no way that in the past life Nangongsa had simply contracted some illness and died. It was vastly more likely that Shu Shuanglin had personally put him in the grave. With Nangongsa dead, Yuangshi could live. That Nangongsa still lived in this lifetime was likely a stroke of luck in the form of Song Chutong. As a butterfly-bone beauty feast, Song Chutong was ideally suited for dual cultivation. If she were to marry Nangongsa, his father would have no complaints. In fact, Nangonglu probably felt like a meat pie had dropped from the heavens. He would no longer push Yuangshi to marry Nangongsa. And since Yuangshi and Nangongsa were no longer engaged, Shu Shuanglin had no reason to move against Nangongsa in the current lifetime. Sure. All this made perfect sense. It really did, is the infuriating part. Yet there was one thing that still mystified Moran. Why did Shu Shuanglin, who seemed every bit a deranged monster, care so deeply for Yuangshi? That's the question that I was about to ask. She was no more than his foster daughter after all. What was this sly, mercurial man so fixated on? What was he after? Yeah, my girl, same. My questions exactly. This memory was fairly brief and ended shortly. When the illusion lit up again, it showed a scene from many years ago. Nangonglu was noticeably younger and thinner. He held a small object in his hand that twinkled with a jade-green light. As the onlookers peered closely at it, they realized it was the ring of the Rufang Sect leader. Once on its wearer's finger, this ring couldn't be taken off until the day the wearer left their post. If Nangonglu was holding the ring, he hadn't yet officially become the master of Rufang Sect. An attendant entered and knelt in greeting. His robes were splattered with blood, as though he'd just stepped off the battlefield. This must be the night Nangonglu slew his master and reclaimed Rufang Sect's ring. Sect leader, how should we deal with Lo Fenghua's body? Nangonglu turned the ring in his hand. Bury him in the hero's tomb, he replied after a moment of consideration. Regardless of all else, we were once master and disciple. Allow him to rest in dignity. Yes, sir. The attendant withdrew. Moran furrowed his brow. This couldn't be right. According to the previous memory, the Nangong brothers' teacher, Lo Fenghua, had been hacked to pieces by Nangonglu. His body had been thrown into the blood pool of hell, where he'd been transmogrified into a vicious ghost. He had fallen into the infinite hells, never to reincarnate. Why was Nangonglu saying he wanted to bury his master's intact body in the hero's tomb? Within the illusion, Nangonglu rubbed the sect leader's glimmering ring. A strange and complicated light flashed in his eyes, containing both trepidation and longing. His throat bobbed. At last he slowly lifted his hand. Under the soft glow of the candlelight, he solemnly slid the ring onto his thumb. He stared at his hand, examining it carefully. The corners of his mouth slowly curled, as if to herald a brilliant, delighted smile. But before the smile had spread over half his face, it froze. Nangonglu screamed and toppled from the sect leader's throne, his body convulsing. Sect leader, what's wrong? Attendants rushed to help him, but none expected that when Nangonglu lifted his head, his face would be bathed in blood. Countless tiny cuts had opened on his face, perfectly smooth and healthy moments ago. The bizarre wounds tore open and healed in an endless cycle, gushing blood without cease. "What's going on?" Nangonglu cried in panicked terror. It hurts so bad. Why is this happening? What's going on?" Footsteps sounded outside the door. A man walked into the room, outlined by moonlight, stepping onto the ice-cold brick with slender bare feet. He came before Nangonglu, lifted the hem of his robes, and dropped to one knee. The newcomer was none other than a younger Shuanglin. He leaned down and brought Nangonglu's face closer to examine it carefully. Nangonglu gasped for breath, his tears, snot, and blood mixing miserably. Shuanglin frowned in disgust. "How did this happen?" I don't know. Shuanglin, Shensheng, please save me." Back then, Shuanglin was still one of Nangonglu's advisors. He didn't yet merit the title of elder. Looking over the writhing Nangonglu, Shuanglin took hold of his right hand. When he saw the ring glittering there, his expression changed. "There's a curse of 10,000 calamities on this ring?" The aides gathered nearby gasped in horror. Only Nangonglu seemed to be lost in a trance of pain, oblivious to the details of this lethal curse. He raised his tear-streaked face in confusion. Glistening snot leaked from his nose, mingling with blood and dripping onto the tiles. What's that?" "It's a deadly curse." Shuanglin wore an ugly expression. "Lo Fenghua left a terrible curse on this ring. Under its influence, the next wearer's skin will tear open under the slightest bit of moonlight, consigning them to a life worse than death. Every single night." Lo Fenghua did this. Sure. "What?" "That's not all." Shuanglin ran his fingers along the ring's jade stone. He closed his eyes and sensed a rush of spiritual power from it. "When there's a full moon, even if you don't take a step outside, even if you hole up and avoid the moon's light, you'll still feel you're being hacked to pieces. There's no way to escape it." He opened his eyes and glanced at Nangonglu, who was curled on the ground, inhumanly wretched. "The only respite is death," Shuanglin finished softly. Beneath the foul layer of gore, Nangonglu's pupils contracted. He looked like an oversized rat seized by panic, or like a snake surveying a gloomy cave. He twitched, almost comically, and muttered, "The only respite is death? The curse, it can't be broken?" "It can't be broken," Shuanglin responded. "At least I can't think of a way right now. Perhaps later you could—" Before he could finish, Nangonglu broke free of his grasp. Screaming and cackling, he staggered down the stairs, leaving a trail of blood to meander across the cold, bright tiles. As he wailed and shrieked, his voice grew so distorted, so shrill, that many of the onlookers had to cover their ears. "A curse! You cursed me! Lo Fenghua, you stole the sect leader seat from my family, the Nangong clan. I left your corpse untouched when I ousted you, which was already perfectly just. You actually cursed me. How could you have the heart? How could you have the nerve? I wanted to acknowledge the favor of your teaching and bury you in the hero's tomb. The hero's tomb! But you'll have me suffer each night, my skin shredded to pieces. The only respite is death." He howled, dragging himself inch by bloody inch to the gate of the main hall. He slumped in the dark shadow of the hall's great bronze gates, his claw-like fingers twitching ominously. Without warning, he struck the ground with his hand. "The only respite is death. How could you be so heartless? Why would you be so heartless? Bastard, you ruined my life." You kind of killed him, so... I don't know, we're just weighing who's done what to whom. Sect leader. Unable to watch any longer, an attendant approached and tried to help him to his feet, but Nangonglu bellowed and snarled. He looked utterly deranged. His face, presently a gory mess, had ever exuded a feeble and incompetent air, but now a deep hatred was etched across his features. It danced in his pupils like wildfire, consuming the last scrap of his rationality. "Let my first order, as sect leader, be known," Nangonglu screamed hysterically. The attendants knelt to hear the command. "The previous sect leader, Lo Fenghua, has committed terrible crimes of utmost evil. He cannot be pardoned. I command you to take his remains and hack them into pieces. Turn him into paste." Shuanglin stood calmly off to the side. He listened with his eyes lowered, his expression unreadable. As his face tore open once more, Nangonglu could no longer bear it and collapsed into desperate sobs. but he still completed his first order as leader of Rufang Sect as he cried, grinding each word between his teeth. Throw his body into the blood pool. Your curse will mutilate me. The only respite is death. I'll throw you into the infinite hells, never to reincarnate. That was, presumably, his thought process. The scene faded on a Nangonglu staring with unseeing eyes, his voice hoarse as a broken shun, which comes with a footnote. Shun is an egg-shaped flute made of clay or ceramic. Gotcha. His voice hoarse as a broken shun as he muttered, Lo Fenghua, you bastard. You fucking bastard. The shards of memory scattered apart once again and gathered like snowflakes. The crowd was enthralled by the drama of Rufang Sect's scandals laid bare. Some, like Ye Wangshi and Nangonglu, had no choice but to watch. The events depicted concerned them personally, but most of the audience was simply thrilled by this glimpse into the sordid secrets of others. Once again, I am in the room. I am towards the back. I am tossing back some popcorn like you would not believe. As I spill tea. Envy was the world's ugliest emotion. Of those who had been invited to Nangonglu's wedding, how many had come to pay their sincere respects to Rufang Sect? Upon walking through the magnificent palace gates, treading upon the spiritual stones worth their weight in gold, seeing those 72 stately cities, how many people felt pure admiration without an ounce of jealousy? The loftier the edifice, the greater the crowd watching when it collapsed. Somebody write that down. These people would litter the ground with shells of melon seeds as they gossiped, spittle flying a yard with each word. Along every avenue and alleyway, over a cup of tea or after a meal, the suffering of others was always the headiest spice for conversation. Especially when it comes to shitty rich people. Moran almost couldn't bear to continue watching, but his need to understand the situation's layered complexities outweighed his distaste. Shuanglin's memories seemed legitimate, and they offered an explanation for everything that had happened at Jingcheng Lake and Peach Blossom Springs. Yet Moran felt vaguely that a piece was missing. Some elements in this last memory didn't add up, but which ones? Oh, we love a baby getting smarter. We really do. We love the growth. Also, Shuanglin engineered this whole thing, but we haven't figured that out yet. Watch me be wrong. That'd be really funny. He knitted his brows and pondered in gloomy silence. Suddenly, he saw a strange flash of light out of the corner of his eye. With the new illusion taking shape, no one had bothered to look beyond the forest, and therefore no one had noticed. Moran stood frozen, his face drained of color. Then he yelled at the top of his lungs, "It's apocalyptic fire!" Everyone turned. Apocalyptic fire? Where? Over there. It's over there. No, it's over there too. While everyone had been mesmerized by Shuanglin's memories, Rufang Sect's 72 cities had gone up in raging scarlet flames. The fire was yet distant, and the forest was dense. The blaze was easy to miss if their attention was elsewhere. Well, that would be a real good reason, then, to entertain everyone with the drama, TM, while your plan comes to further fruition. Wait! See, the thing that eliminates, not the Fako-Chen, eliminates the other reborn, as he shall be very dramatically called. The thing that eliminates Tianjun from being the other reborn is that he's a water bitch, right? And Moran, not a water bitch. So we can eliminate him from the running. But, I mean, so it doesn't necessarily have to be Tianjun who, once again, just lays waste to the 72 cities. It could be someone just emulating Tianjun in that way. Be like, I'm going to recreate what you did in the past life that I know about, kind of thing. But it's just a little, on the nose of this unknown reborn guy to lay waste to the 72 cities in the way that Tianjun did. That has leapt out at me, certainly. Apocalyptic fire was no natural occurrence. This type of spirit-fueled inferno could only be doused by a great rainstorm. A water bitch is what you're telling me? A water bitch can fix this. Okay. It would otherwise be unstoppable until it consumed everything in its path, leaving behind not a single blade of grass. Thick smoke billowed. The light of the flames was as water spilled on silk, rapidly blurring at the edges. In the distance, one bright arrow after another streaked like meteors from the 72 cities, but how could they be meteors? These were the Rufang Sect disciples fleeing the conflagration on their swords. Many blanched at this sight. "What's going on?" they cried. Even more turned on their heels and started running back toward Poetry Hall, calling the names of their companions. Shui Jingyong's face fell. Madame Wang was still in the hall, and she couldn't ride a sword. "Run, Yu Hung, I'll leave Meng Er to you guys. I gotta go check on my wifey." No! This man! Moran was worried too. He nodded. "Uncle, hurry, get on out of there. We'll be here. I won't let anything happen to Shui Meng." We just gotta make promises like that. Okay. Shui Jingyong clapped him heartily on the shoulder and promptly took off toward the flame-wreathed Poetry Hall. Shuanglin stood unmoving as chaos broke out around him. He flashed a brilliant grin and laughed. What a sight! The monkeys scatter when the tree falls. Moran whipped around and saw Shuanglin snap his fingers. Sparkling shards of memory rushed into his palm like millions of snowflakes. The illusion dispersed, revealing surroundings that were fast becoming a sea of fire. The heavenly rift to the infinite hells yet gaped in the sky, pouring golden red lava that flowed sluggishly toward the forest. As Moran stared at Shuanglin, a shiver ran down his spine. The look in this man's eyes was all wrong. It was a look Moran knew only too well. He had seen eyes like this each time he stood before a mirror at Xisheng Peak. At the deserted Wushan Palace, after Chuaning died. Eyes filled with madness and bloodlust, with self-destructive despair. The eyes of someone who wanted to take every living person to the grave with him. Wait. Water bitch aside, it is possible that okay, hang on. It is possible that Taishan Jun, after Chu Wanning had died, because he killed himself fairly soon after, I think it was just like a couple of days, that there has been a lie of omission here, and that Taishan Jun killed himself both because he'd reached the end of his rope, but had done something, some ritual, some magic, something, to make himself be reborn. And somewhere in the process, he became a water bitch. That's... feels like a stretch. However, if he was so at the end of his rope, the motive is what I'm a little shaky on, because if he was so at the end of his rope that he was like, I am going to be reborn to raise the cultivation world to the ground again? So incensed was he after Chu Wanning's death? I'm deliberately not looking at the chat right now. I'm a little weak on motive, but the possibility that he pulled that kind of bullshit is not, the odds aren't zero. You know? Or Moran could just be identifying with someone who's just been driven utterly and mad, because that's something that happened to him, and it could be not him. Who can say? One person can say, and she's not saying it. I'm invested a normal amount. Do you want to destroy Rufang Sect? At Moran's question, Shunglin's first reaction was to rub his toes together. Then he said with a sliver of a smile, "So what if I do? I'm destroying my own home. Who asked for your opinion?" Your own home. Shuanglin stepped over the roiling lava toward Nangonglu. He grabbed the Rufang Sect leader by the collar and hoisted him from the ground. Shuanglin looked up. That's right. My own home. He forced Nangonglu to face him, in front of that man whose last breath had been suspended by the Lingqi fruit, who was living a life worse than death even now. Shuanglin lifted one hand, then the other, to his own neck. Starting from the base, he dug into skin and languidly, unhurriedly, ripped upward, inch by inch. There was a quiet hiss as he peeled away an exquisite human skin mask, made from the painted slough of an ancient snake demon. Beneath was a face that possessed no more than the charm of youth. We've Mission Impossibled in a way that has broken my brain. Nangonglu froze in shock. Then he began trembling and cowering. He felt like he was suffocating, but still he eked out some faltering, broken words. You. It's you. You're not dead. You're still... Why can't I remember his fucking name? It couldn't be, the dude he screwed over. The one who cursed him, right? That would be funny, but I don't... Not dead. Still alive. After all, how could I possibly die before you did? Shuanglin smiled broadly. In every respect, I am your superior, and longevity will be no exception. Even after you rot, I'll be alive and kicking. What's wrong? It's been so long since we've seen each other. Are you speechless with joy? Shuanglin conjured a flame and touched it to that mask. The fire burned all the way down to his fingertips, but either he was too distracted to mind it or felt no pain. He shook out his hand and pressed a charred fingertip to the side of Nangonglu's mouth. Shuanglin cocked his head and grinned. Long time no see, esteemed sect leader. Or should I say, guh. That's the end of the chapter. We're on page 169 for chapter 169. Take a drink. It's called Shizun. It's the first forbidden technique. Nangonglu, one of the older men among the remaining spectators, cried. Is that him? It's Nangonglu. Didn't he die ages ago? Lo Fenghua killed him with his own hands. How is he still alive? Yuangshi was stunned, her elegant face alarmingly pale. She shook her head and took a step back. Yifu, she murmured at last through trembling lips, her eyes full of tears. That's why he cares! 'Cause she's his... Okay. Shuanglin glanced toward Yuangshi with a small smile. Little Yuzi, come over here next to Yifu. I won't hurt you. Don't you dare touch her, someone yelled ferociously. Yuangshi felt her wrist grabbed and turned to see Nangongse, his eyes overflowing with a pain, raw as an open wound. Yuangshi, get behind me. Shuanglin chuckled. My dear nephew, why is your temperament so different from your dad's? You're just like your mother. Not this bitch, literally going by Shuanglin when he's Nangonglu. He thinks he's funny. Shut up! You have no right to mention my mom. Don't I? Shuanglin drawled. Didn't you know? The one your mom liked best was originally me, not your dad. Nangong's face contorted in fury and disgust, madness and agony flashing through his eyes. The sight seemed to please Shuanglin. He cackled raucously, as if such bone-deep hatred nourished his soul. Your dad ruined my reputation. He stole everything from me, but who cares? Rufang Sect. Rufang Sect was in his hands when it met its doom. So go on and hate me, sir. Go on and hate me, Doggo. Did you all think poor little Nangonglu would die so easily? Did you think I'd lie down in my tomb like a good boy and watch you all make merry in the living world? His smile twisted into a leer. You must be dreaming, he spat. He turned his attention back to Nangonglu, who was hanging on to life by an unbreakable thread. Shuanglin yanked his brother up by the collar as if grabbing a palmful of filthy mud. How well could the brilliant Rufang Sect fare in the hands of such trash? How laughable. Sect leader or no, I still played you for a fool all these years. After all, didn't you wag your tail like a good dog and fetch me whatever I asked? He gave Nangonglu's bloody cheek a cheerful pat. The smile curving his lips was affectionate, but his eyes flashed with menace. Daga, you're nothing but a pathetic coward. A useless piece of shit. Guyue's sect leader, Jiang Shi, raised his voice. Sir, did you show us these scenes for the sole purpose of destroying Rufang Sect's centuries of history and tradition? Shuanglin turned his head and blinked. Centuries of history? What of them? If traditions are abolished, they can be formed anew. If the 72 cities are burned, they can be built again. The only thing that will please me is the death of a human heart, its ashes scattering on the wind. He flashed Jiang Shi a brilliant smile. I'd like to destroy every one of your hearts. He's making family issues everybody's problem. He spoke with a calm that was all the more terrifying when paired with the gleeful look on his face. Nangonglu had had enough. Vengeful fire blazed in his eyes, choked with the thick smoke of desperation. Those eyes harbored a hell-bent hatred and not a shred of self-preservation. Before the others could react, a whistle of his jade flute brought a fey wolf as tall as 3 men bounding out of the woods, soaring through the air to land before him. Nangonglu vaulted onto his back, their shadows leaping forward before he was even fully seated. Mantuo, come! A holy weapon in the form of a dazzling bow appeared in Nangonglu's hand. With perfect form astride the fey wolf, he drew the jade bow Mantuo, his features written with feverish hostility. He loosed 3 arrows in rapid succession, all flying toward Shuanglin's vital points. Shuanglin grinned. Sire, you naughty boy. He sidestepped the first 2 arrows and, seeing that he couldn't avoid the third, casually seized the flabby, half-dead body of his elder brother to block it. Despite everything, Nangonglu was still Nangonglu's father. However callous Nangonglu had been, their bond of blood was a habit carved into Nangonglu's bones. Nangonglu flinched, and his temple throbbed. His sharp canines cut into his lip, filling his mouth with blood. Did you still want to play with Uncle? Shuanglin said with a genial smile. If you do, I'll indulge you. Nangonglu, I'm going to kill you. What's a cute kid doing yelling about killing? Although Shuanglin spoke leisurely, his movements were anything but as he turned to face off against his nephew. Within a few moves, it was clear that Shuanglin's skill was exceptional. The audience gaped in awe. Some thought it was no wonder he'd been so bent out of shape when Nangonglu was named the next sect leader. The difference in magical ability between these 2 brothers was like that between heaven and earth, between clouds and mud. The elder was hardly even fit to carry the younger shoes. Wow, he's good. Didn't they say Nangonglu stole his brother's techniques back in the day? How is he so powerful now? Looks like he'd give up any top Zongsha. I'm too excited. Looks like he'd give any top Zongsha a run for his money. The few onlookers who had initially thought to step to the fore with Nangonglu now shrank back one after another. Some quick-witted disciples, concluding that Rufang Sect, I read for a living, and I'm too excited about it. Concluding that Rufang Sect was irrevocably doomed, seized the chance to make their own escape amidst the chaos. Their cowardice proved contagious. In no time, most of the remaining cultivators had fled. Even the sectmates of the still unconscious chess pieces turned tail and left their helpless sect siblings behind. Within moments, only a handful of people remained in the hunting grounds forest. Moran surveyed the scene. Only he, Shuanglin, and Yuangshi had stayed behind. Wait, no. So had Jiangshi. Now this was unexpected. Jiangshi was the richest man in the world, the leader of Rainbow Isle, the most successful businessman on Earth, and the head of the cultivation realm's foremost sect after Rufang. No one would have guessed he would willingly tend to such a stressful and thankless task. Jangdong. At the sound of this small, quavering voice, Moran looked back again in astonishment. There was one more person here. The man cowered behind a tangerine tree, face gray and lips trembling, yet had managed to remain while his fellows fled. Li Wuxin, for it was indeed he, swallowed. His face was a greasy yellow, the jaundiced hue of rice husks, covered in a sheen of sweat. As the leader of the upper cultivation world's bottom-ranked sect, he looked uncertainly at the others. Shall we make our move together? You know, the second top guy and the bottom top guy, each for a moment having the same goal, albeit for two different reasons. I am presuming that the second top guy would love to get rid of the top guy, you know? But meanwhile, I think the bottom top guy would have at least somewhat more altruistic motives. Jiangshi didn't answer right away. He swept a swift glance over the rest and said with practiced authority, Li Zhongzhu, you're with me. I'll save the chess pieces who are still fast asleep. You'll be responsible for conveying them to safety on your sword. Yes. As for Chu Zongsha and Mo Zongsha, Moran, go assist Nangonglu, said Shuanglin. I'll seal the heavenly rift before I join you. This heavenly rift was unlike butterfly towns. It wasn't teeming with evil ghosts. After the initial onrush, only the golden red lava of hell still flowed from its maw. At this point, the danger was much reduced, but given the massive size of the rip, Shuanglin was undoubtedly best suited to mending it. Moran released Jianggui's 10,000 coffins, and the 20-odd young cultivators who'd become chess pieces tumbled to the ground. Jiangshi wasted no time. He swept back his green sleeves and sprinkled a generous dose of medicinal powder over them to stabilize their weak condition. Then he inclined his head toward Li Wuxin. If you please. Li Wuxin nodded and summoned his sword. The glowing jade-green blade was of an ordinary size, large enough to carry 2 or 3 people. Following Li Wuxin's silent incantation, it rapidly grew as it hung in midair until it was more than 10 feet in length. Jiangshi carried the unconscious cultivators onto the sword one by one. By the time he reached Shui Meng at the end of the line, Li Wuxin's weapon was at capacity. I can't carry anymore, said Li Wuxin. Let's figure it out after I make this first trip. Jiangshi glanced at their surroundings. Sparks were flying on all sides, and the tide of spiritual energy was spiraling frighteningly out of control. The tangerine trees around them collapsed one after another, breaking like rotten twigs. The spot where they stood would soon share the same fate. With no other choice, he shot Shui Meng a resentful glare. Forget it, you go ahead. I'll handle this last brat myself, he intoned in a deep voice. Shui Huang, come. A silver longsword emitting light of a splendid blue hue materialized beneath his feet. Shui Huang was of exquisite make. The hilt delicate, the filigree beautiful beyond measure, but was obviously ill-suited for carrying a heavy load. Still, it could handle the weight of 2 people. Jiangshi scooped the unconscious Shui Meng into his arms. As he remembered Shui Meng's earlier disrespect and the fact that he was the son of Madame Wang and Shui Jingyang, he couldn't keep the disgust from his face. Li Wuxin was dumbfounded by sect leader Zhang's expression. Surely Jiangshi wouldn't toss Xisheng Peak's young master from the sky and allow him to be smashed to paste, would he? Why are we asking that question? Why would you manifest that? What are you looking at? Jiangshi snapped. Hurry up and go. Get them out of here so you can come back and help. We can't let Rufang Sect burn to the ground like this. With the slowly awakening youngsters safely aboard, the 2 holy weapons rose on the wind and sped into the distance. By now, Shuanglin had repaired all but the very last section of the Heavenly Rift, and Moran had joined Nangonglu in furious battle against Shuanglin. Moran's strength was formidable, and Nangonglu was out to kill. Capable as Shuanglin was, even he was beginning to flag under their combined onslaught. With the tide slowly turning against him, Shuanglin called to Yuangshi. Yaza, why are you just standing there? Will you let your Yifu die like a dog? Come help me out already. Yuang Shi clenched her fists. Her expression was deeply pained, and she trembled from head to toe. But she refused to advance, instead retreating one step at a time. You're really going to sit there without lifting a finger? Have you forgotten who carried you home from the Tangerine Grove when you were little? Who raised you? Who gave you your name? No. Yuang Shi was on the verge of breaking down. But everyone, sect leader and elders included, had always treated her as a boy. This nightmarish situation, too, she faced with her usual stoicism. Her back was ruler straight, and though a red flush stood out on her cheeks, she didn't break into sobs as an ordinary girl might. Yet she felt as though her body had disintegrated. If anyone were to nudge her right now, she was sure her skin and organs would slough away from her skeleton, dissolving into mush. Shuanglin cursed under his breath, but he didn't coerce her further. He turned to fight the other two with renewed determination. The knife in his hand emitted a metallic screech. The blade was a top-grade weapon from Kunlun Tashui Palace, but it was at its limit. As Moran's willow vine lashed it once again, it shattered and fell to the ground in pieces. What are you going to fight with now? Moran asked coldly. Shuanglin was running out of options. Great, we want to make a guy like him desperate. At that moment, there was a distant sound from above, like an echoing explosion from a bygone age. Shuanglin jerked his head up to find Chu Wanning had patched the heavenly rift. The night sky above the forest of the hunting grounds returned to its customary black, and the lava of the underworld, cut off from its source, scattered instantly into motes of red gold that drifted into the woods like fireflies. Unbelievably gorgeous is their fan art of that. Chu Wanning floated down from the night sky against a backdrop of stars. His muted formal robes billowed in the gale, enhancing the porcelain paleness of his face and the peerless handsomeness of his features. But his elegant appearance couldn't conceal the murderous intent that radiated from every inch of him. Fuck. Shuanglin gritted his teeth. He could barely handle Mo Zongshe. If Chu Zongshe joined the fray, was there anyone in the world of cultivation who could oppose their combined might? We love a power couple. Shuanglin took a step back. He slashed his palm with the knife to draw blood, which he used to smear a spell array on his forehead. Still no rescue, he growled. How long are you going to drag this out? As he lifted his hand, his fingernails lengthened, growing by several inches. Lo Fenghuo's corpse still lay on the lake. Shuanglin reached down and ripped his chest open, extracting his bloody spiritual core with a wet sucking noise. Ugh! He tucked it into his lapels and leapt backward in flight. To everyone's surprise, he dragged his half-dead brother along with him. A twitch of his hand dispelled the barrier below him, and he jumped into Gangquan Lake, sinking straight to the bottom. Moran started. The holy weapon Bugui, which had just been used to open the heavenly rift to the underworld, was still at the bottom of the lake. Shuanglin was an adept swimmer. Even towing Nangonglu's dead weight, his bare feet propelled him swiftly through the water to grab the jet black blade in the middle of the lake. The moment he broke the surface, another crack appeared in the sky. Chu Wanning frowned. A heavenly rift? His tone was uncertain. The crack was small, only the height of a man, and emitted no dark chi. This was clearly no heavenly rift to the ghost realm. With a great splash, Shuanglin sprang from the lake, his brother in one hand and Bugui in the other. Brandishing the holy weapon, he hurled a beam of sword chi that slowed his three pursuers in their tracks, then seized the chance to flit upward. High above, a delicate hand reached out from the narrow rift and grabbed Shuanglin's arm. It's the space-time gate of life and death, Chu Wanning exclaimed. Realization struck him like a bolt of lightning, and his eyes went wide. He had maintained his composure until that moment. Even the Zhenlong chess formation hadn't faced him. But now the color drained from his face. Stricken, his hands curled into fists within his sleeves. Moran felt like a bucket of cold water had been thrown in his face. He whipped around. What? How? Of the three forbidden techniques, this was the most powerful. Legend had it that it could rip apart time and space, defying fate, to bring together people of distant eras. before their very eyes was the most taboo of all the lost techniques of the cultivation world, the space-time gate of life and death. That's the end of the chapter. We are halfway through volume 5, and now you bring up BT dubs. Time travel is possible. How could that possibly be related to, oh, I don't know, the main character being reborn into his previous life? Oh. Oh. Okay. This, this opens up some possibilities. It's almost certainly not reborn so much as time traveled. At least for the unknown reborn guy. But I would hazard a fucking guess that there's no reborn at all. And that Moran got time traveled somehow. Either through a lie of omission in the beginning, or, I don't know, somebody could have... Alright. I'm gonna float a somewhat batshit theory right now. But you understand, because you know what we're dealing with. Unknown reborn guy fucked with Moran's memory a little while ago. Does Moran only think he committed suicide? But he didn't? He got yeeted back in time? This does not explain how he got yeeted back in time into his original body with no extra Moran running around, to our knowledge. But ultimately, whatever the greater context and how those pieces moved into place and how it worked, does Moran only think he committed suicide? And he got yeeted back into this time, and then his memory was like wiped or replaced or some shit. This is the thought we get to have now. Thanks, Meat Bun. We're on page 179 for chapter 170. Jesus freaking Christ. It's called Shizun Don't Look. It's filthy. Joyous this is. How long is... Yeah, that's a proper chapter. It's about 4. So we're going to go ahead and take our break now. As I don't know, drink my tea and stare off into space. For a little while. I'll have to make more tea at this point. Dear God, didn't I have something to mention to y'all at some point? I'll try to remember it over the break as I collect myself. I try to keep it to 10 minutes or less. So, I'll see you back here in just a freaking second. Welcome back. As we get adjusted for part 2 of today's stream. I can't believe she just dropped time travel on us like this. A lovely person who goes by Land Jade dropped a super chat for 20 pounds just now and said, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing a bit of gay into our lives through these streams. You're very welcome. And also, thank you. That is so sweet of you. Thank you so much for that, Land Jade. You're a sweetheart. Thank you so much. I did indeed remember, actually, okay, that's a lie. Maddie mentioned it in the chat and reminded me that yes, the thing that I was going to mention to you guys is that on May 1st, in addition to beginning Captive Prince for the reading streams at 3 p.m. A little bit earlier at 1:30 p.m. will be Gaywatch's big 5-year anniversary stream where we're going to have a little bit of a chat and I'm going to answer some questions that come from the Patreon and a bit of a Q&A thing, but also you guys can bring your questions as well. It's going to be a little bit of a free-for-all, a very nice chill hangout. Oh my god, 5 years of Gaywatch kind of thing. And so that is happening May 1st at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will probably be telling you about that at the next stream and the stream after that, because the stream after that is the actual, Gaywatch 5-year anniversary stream, and then we begin Captive Prince, which also, we begin Captive Prince in 10 days. Does anybody else realize that? Are you kidding? We can't talk about it. There's way too freaking much going on right now in Erha. We can't talk about it. But that is a stream that is happening. So we get a nice little fun Gaywatch 5 years thing, which hasn't even fully set in yet. And probably won't until the stream starts. And then that's probably when I start crying. But that's fine. It's fine. It's going to be a really good time. Bring your love and your chat and your questions and your good vibes for the Gaywatch 5-year anniversary stream on May 1st, which is literally the anniversary. It's not before or after. It is on the day. It just so happens to be a magical Thursday. Anyway, we're on page 179 for chapter 170, which is called, once again, Shizun, don't look, it's filthy. What's filthy? Everything. What he's not looking at could be anything. Could be the truth, could be an actual thing, could be quite literally anything, because everything's filthy at the moment. In an instant, the hand that had emerged from the space-time gate of life and death pulled Shuanglin into another universe. Was that hand the reborn? It's been one sentence. Nangonglu made to pursue, but it was impossible. The instant Shuanglin crawled through that rift in the heavens, it sealed itself with a bang. All that remained in the night sky was a drifting scrap of Shuanglin's hem that hadn't made it through the gate. The slip of fabric fluttered down through the stillness and landed on the lake, where the white cloth quickly soaked through and sank below the water's surface. How? Moran muttered. How could someone have mastered the space-time gate of life and death? As Taishan Jun in his past life, he knew better than anyone the 3 forbidden techniques: the Zhenlong chess formation, rebirth, and the space-time gate of life and death. The first 2 forbidden techniques were exceedingly difficult to learn, yet it was not unheard of for some in the cultivation world to master them. Moran in the past life and Master Huazui in this one were 2 such examples. Historical accounts of the space-time gate of life and death, on the other hand, were passing few. The most recent was a tale from thousands of years ago, in which a Grand Master cultivator lost his beloved daughter and, heartbroken, opened the forbidden gate to retrieve his daughter from another universe and bring her back into his own. Sorry, excuse me. That just settled in. The another universe thing just settled in. That just settled in. So, not so much time travel as alternate universes. My brain's getting rewritten in real time, guys. What do you mean? We're just gonna breathe. We're just gonna breathe. We're just gonna... We're just going to breathe and read words. Unfortunately, his counterpart within the other world discovered him. We're not going to get through the chapters we need to get through if every single sentence does this. He too was a father. How could he allow anyone, even himself, to wrest from him his beloved daughter? As the two squared off, fighting to kill, the space-time rift warped. In the end, their daughter was swept into the gap between worlds and reduced to dust. Upon his return, the cultivator, rent with grief, sealed the forbidden technique scrolls within the Flame Emperor's sacred tree. The vast river of time flowed onward, and he became the last person to fully master the space-time gate of life and death. No one had witnessed this forbidden technique performed in centuries, and present-day cultivators had grown increasingly skeptical that such a technique, able to distort space and time itself, had ever existed in the first place. In the past life, however, Moran had gotten hold of a fragment of those ancient scrolls. Drawing on his own boundless cultivation, he had succeeded in opening a small rift of a similar nature. But that rift crossed only space, not time, and it was far from stable. Moran had tossed a rabbit into the gap, intending to send it thousands of miles away. The rabbit was indeed transported, but on account of the rift's instability, the creature emerged inside out. Its organs were exposed, and its skin and fur had been sealed within. What was left amounted to no more than a scrambled lump of gore, its small heart still beating. Moran experimented with the technique many more times after that, but 5 or 6 attempts in 100 would go horribly wrong. Sometimes the body would be mutilated, torn to pieces. Sometimes the brain would emerge right away, but the rift wouldn't disgorge the rest until an hour later. So Moran had some experience with trying to master this. Did he? Or, in his attempts, once he felt comfortable to risk things and hopped into the rift, did a glitch or mistake happen again? But this time, instead of turning him inside out, it split him into two in a way. Or, no, it wouldn't even need to split. You see what I'm saying? And that's how we got here. And it's Taisha and Jun fucking with forbidden shit. That's why we're here. We're never gonna get through these fucking chapters. Alright. Even these mediocre results had been sufficient to make waves in the cultivation world. Many believed that Moran had uncovered and mastered the space-time gate of life and death, but Moran himself remained uncertain. He had no first-hand experience of this forbidden technique, he last used thousands of years ago. But if the records were to be believed, the technique he had cobbled together was nowhere close to the genuine space-time gate of life and death. Shuanglin soared across the surface of the lake and plucked that scrap of Shuanglin's robe from the water. Closing his eyes, he carefully probed its residual spiritual energy. He let out a breath, but his face was written with worry. Shuanglin shook his head. It's not a complete space-time gate of life and death. Whoever created it has only mastered part of the ancient scroll. Judging by the spiritual energy on this fabric, it's merely a space gate, not a space-time gate. I'm like this close to apologizing to Shimei. Man, I'm like right there. What does that mean? It means there's still a great difference in power between the technique we just witnessed and the real first forbidden technique. Shuanglin replied. I can sense that the remnant spiritual energy has only traversed space. Someone pulled Nangonglu through this rift to instantaneously bring him somewhere else. Moran thought to himself, was this not similar to the gate he had produced in his past life? If so, such an achievement wasn't inconceivable, but his heart felt heavy. What if it were the genuine article, though, he asked. What could that accomplish if mastered? Shuangling's expression shifted subtly. After a pause, he answered, if it were the real space-time gate of life and death, the caster wouldn't be limited to creating a rift between two different locations. They could bring Nangonglu into an entirely different world. At this, Maddie's got it right. Sorry, Maddie in the chat has it right. Until I see it in black and white that he's innocent, I refuse to apologize. That is the very thin thread that I am hanging on, and why I haven't actually apologized to Shimei yet. I need it right here. You know what I'm saying? At this, Moran's face fell slightly. He pressed his lips into a tight line and didn't make another sound. In the past lifetime, he hadn't been well read and didn't know which of the records he'd gathered could really be trusted. He had doubted the reliability of the legend about the Grandmaster Cultivator who had opened a rift in time to fetch his daughter from another world. But after hearing these words from Shuanglin, Moran was convinced. With this sense of conviction came a deep chill. During the 5 years Shuanglin slept in the Red Lotus Pavilion, Moran had read many of the classics. He had vaguely begun to feel over the course of his studies that the phenomenon of his own rebirth was quite peculiar. In the past life, he had never encountered the genuine rebirth technique. He had imagined this so-called rebirth would be what happened to him. A person would be returned to some point in time before their death and start anew from there. But in the present life, Moran had personally seen Master Huizui execute this forbidden technique. It had left him confounded. Huizui's technique had summoned Shuangling's souls from the underworld and returned them to his mortal body, which hadn't decayed or endured serious damage. Afterward, Shuanglin went on living in the world he knew. This was completely different from what Moran had experienced. If someone had used the same technique as Master Huizui to revive Moran after his death in the past life, he would have been reborn in Wushan Palace. He would have still been the abominable Emperor Taishanjun. Shuanglin, Shimei, his aunt and uncle, they'd all be dead. No one would be by his side. Thus, Moran had reasoned that there might be more than one type of rebirth, and differing methods had been used for his and Shuangling's resurrection. But now, hearing Shuanglin confirm the existence of the space-time gate of life and death, the most mysterious of the 3 forbidden techniques, Moran was struck by a horrifying thought. Could it be that, in addition to the rebirth technique, he had been additionally subjected to the space-time gate of life and death, and his evil souls that ought to have been tormented in another universe for their crimes were transported through a rift in space-time to a year when none of it had yet occurred, yet everything could still be turned back? A combination of the two. a combination of the two? Rebirth brings Moran back. The space-time gate places him in an alternate universe. Swapped, for lack of a better word, with the AU Moran. That's why he has his memories. But why would somebody do that? And then therefore it would have to have been somebody who was alive by the end of Taeshanjun's reign. The first person who jumps to mind, who was not capable of that, I don't think, like actually capable of that, but the only person who I remember being alive at the end was Shui Meng, but that doesn't really make much sense. Although if it turns out to be a secret third thing and it was actually Shui Meng, I will leap out this window that is immediately to my right. But I'm also weak on motive there, and also on capability. I don't think Shui Meng would become, unless through something that we don't know, because God knows there's plenty we don't know. Extenuating, circumstances that we do not know about notwithstanding, Shui Meng, as we know him currently, is not capable of pulling that off. I might go insane, and I haven't even finished reading, the paragraph yet. Hang on. Ow. I just put so much pressure on my freaking thumb that I think I just, bruised my thumbnail. Ow. I don't like her. She's now caused me physical fucking pain. Where the hell am I? No one would be by side struck by horrifying. That could be that in addition to really everything gets to be. Hang on. hang on. I'm gathering my wits, for God knows they have been scattered. In addition to the rebirth technique, he had additionally been subjected. Yeah, he didn't. And his evil souls that ought to have been tormented in another universe for their crimes were transported through a rift in space and time to a year where none of it had yet occurred, when everything could still be turned back. I love how I then just went off the rails and parroted exactly what has just been posited to me. If that were the case, then wouldn't the one behind the scenes have been spying on all he'd done? Wouldn't that person have plotted everything, including his rebirth, and watched in silence from the shadows? A violent shiver ran down Moran's spine. Before he could think on it further, he heard a thunderous explosion from the direction of the apocalyptic fire burning in the distance. "Let's go take a look," said Chu Wanning. Okay. Yeah. And so then, whoever frickin' did this has just been bopping in and out, manipulating things, and then wiping Moran's brain. Again, weak on motive for anyone. Why would anyone do that? It's also wild that I was so dead-ass certain it was Taeshanjun 2 seconds ago, and now I'm now it couldn't be. If this theory holds true, if it was indeed a combination of rebirth and then the gate. Because, if you're dead, you can't bring yourself back to life. So, unless... we can't go down that rabbit hole. All right, so now it can't be Taeshanjun. So then who the... unless... because, I got no reason to think that Shimei wasn't actually dead. In OG universe. Not even a timeline. Universe at this point. I should probably keep reading. Yet even as he said the words, the flames roared to new heights as they consumed the 72 cities of Rufang Sect. It seemed the blaze had reached some device Shuanglin had planted beforehand. The inferno spiraled dozens of feet into the air, its glow piercing the heavens. They needed to go... They needed go no closer to see. By now, the raging fire eating up the night's darkness was visible from hundreds of miles away. Shui Jingyong had already brought Madame Wang out of the conflagration. Turning his head, he saw the towering flames weave into the form of two bodies, passionately intertwined. The figures of a man and woman gradually took shape. "What's going on here?" he asked in astonishment. "That's the question of the day." Week, several months, what have you. Madame Wang's upbringing in a prestigious sect had exposed her to a great number of precious artifacts. Her expression changed at once. This is a type of painted scroll that records memories. Its magic is self-contained and requires no other supporting techniques. Once the user creates it, the memories sealed inside will emerge in the flames of apocalyptic fire. Whatever scenes are recorded in the scroll will play repeatedly until the fire dies out. Until the fire dies. Shui Jingyong, watching as Rufang Sect was swallowed up in the inferno, couldn't help but look on with some pity. Most people, if they planned a daring expose, would simply gather some witnesses and speak their piece while presenting what evidence they had. That was typically plenty, but Shuanglin, the man, was insane. He'd assembled a swath of his own memories in a scroll and set whole cities aflame just to expose to the world the filthy secrets of his own sect. Taking the spreading flames as his canvas, he'd magically amplified these whispered conversations of the past into a thunderous rumbling, as though to ensure even the deaf would hear. What is Shuanglin even doing? Shui Jingyong sat on his enlarged iron fan in midair with Madame Wang beside him, his features cast into fragmented light and shadow by the towering inferno beneath. Has he not dug up enough of Rufang Sect's rotten deeds that he needs to uncover more? He muttered. Madame Wang said nothing. It's enough. He's done enough. He's bloodied Rufang Sect beyond recognition. It's become the laughingstock of the cultivation world. How is he still not satisfied? A woman's voice boomed from the sea of hellfire. The cultivators who had paused mid-flight to watch the fiery scene take shape were startled, Shui Jingyong among them. "Luga, we aren't as young as we were. Why are you still so insatiable?" Following this weak groan, the blurry outlines of the pair and the flames gradually sharpened. The apocalyptic fire that blanketed Rufang Sect's 72 cities twisted into a massive image of two nude, undulating bodies. An auspicious 5-bat motif tattooed on the woman's delicate arm was rendered the size of a building, so enormous that onlookers could see the individual hairs inked on each bat. Almost as one, the assembled cultivators turned to look with astonishment at Jangdong Hall, one of the 10 great sects of the upper cultivation realm. Jangdong Hall's disciples were still more horrified. Their eyes were round as bronze bells as they stared blankly at their sect leader, Qi Lanji. This sect leader was still relatively new to her position. Ashen-faced, she stood stiff on her sword in the night wind. On her arm, clear as day, was that very bat motif tattoo. Never had she imagined that someone not only had witnessed her secret affair with Nangonglu, they'd turned it into a memory scroll that was now being shown so plainly and starkly to the masses. Her mind went blank. Moran's mind had gone blank in much the same way. The instant this image of sect leader Qi appeared in the sky, he covered Chu Wanning's eyes. "Don't look." Chu Wanning was speechless. Moran had acted on subconscious impulse born of his possessive desire for Chu Wanning. He'd once desired to possess his body, taking all his panting breaths, soft moans, and broken sobs for himself. Oh, no! I'm not gonna lie, we do kind of need this right now. Now he had an even greater desire to preserve for himself Chu Wanning's clean, pure heart. Don't look, it's filthy stuff. This is the filth. Isn't it a little too filthy to hide? Chu Wanning wondered. What good did it do to cover his eyes? The lewd sounds of lovemaking echoed in his ears, but he remained silent, letting Moran fold his hands over his eyes. Try as he might to stay calm, his face still heated beneath Moran's palms. And there are definitely sex sounds happening. The pair stood in awkward silence. Perhaps because his eyes were covered, Chu Wanning's available senses became all the more acute. Sect Leader Chi's delicate voice seemed to have sprouted downy hairs that brushed along his spine, leaving a prickling itch in their wake. Whether it was genuine or not, her voice trembled with passionate fervor, as if the man's incursion was the solid root of a tree burrowing into fertile soil, plunging so deep it brought spring water streaming from the mud, suffusing the air with the earthy smell of petrichor. Who are you kidding, Meat Bun? Are you joking? Be so fucking serious right now. You did not write that. You cannot be kidding. That... The sexual metaphor should be hung in museums. What do you mean? I'm going to reread it. Whether it was genuine or not, her voice trembled with passionate fervor, as if the man's incursion was the solid root of a tree burrowing into fertile soil, plunging so deep it brought spring water streaming from the mud, suffusing the air with the earthy smell of petrichor. Be serious. This development made Moran incredibly anxious, at a loss for what to do. He wanted to continue shielding Chu Wanning's eyes, but also to cover his ears. He wanted to shift his hands to cover Chu Wanning's ears, but he wasn't willing to move them from Chu Wanning's eyes. Even worse, in this newly erotic atmosphere, Moran felt that the deepest longing of his heart wasn't to cover Chu Wanning's ears or eyes. A vicious beast crouched in his chest, urging him on with a roar. As if now is the time. It was wholly, completely inappropriate. Thank you for the acknowledgement. Yet he realized suddenly that what he wanted most desperately was to grab Chu Wanning from behind. He wanted to take this man, so unguarded with him, and crush him in his arms, caress his back, suck his earlobe, then wrench his chin around, hold him fast, and kiss the breath from him. Well, now's the time when we possibly show off the funniest art so far. In these trying times, we do kind of need and deserve this. Let's be honest. I cannot believe that any of this is happening. I am, how do you say, beside myself. And in this world, I could literally be that. His fixed... Wait, hang on. I'm just making sure that I'm in the right place. He fixed his dark stare upon Chu Wanning across the gap of mere inches between them. His breathing gradually grew heavy. Chu Wanning was strong and fierce, but no longer a match for Moran in terms of physical strength. If Moran really wanted to overpower him, as he had in the past life, Chu Wanning wouldn't stand a chance. All this stubborn man's strength could only be directed toward biting back the moans between his teeth. No matter how Chu Wanning resisted, Moran would crush him, devour him. Such would be his fate. The man in front of him was oblivious to the dangerous thoughts racing through Moran's head. In an attempt to dispel the awkwardness, Chu Wanning quietly grumbled. This is really outrageous. Moran's throat was dry, his eyes beginning to water. Very outrageous, he agreed in a muffled voice. I realize I'm taking a break at like the worst possible time, but it just occurred to me that the one outlier that has yet to be explained is the de-aging. It's how Moran got here in a younger body than before. I just realized that that's not a thing that has been accounted for yet. Qilongji was clearly a married woman. She stepped up as sect leader of Jangdong Hall after the recent death of her husband. To think she'd turn around and behave like this with Nangonglu, he scornfully concluded. Absurd. It was unseemly. Moran knew it was, but the hunger in his heart was irrepressible. Without realizing, he'd leaned in until his lips practically skimmed the back of Chu Wanning's neck. It's totally absurd, he said distractedly. He swept an indifferent glance over the sky, where Nangonglu and Qilengji's pornographic production was still hurtling along. He dimly recalled that Qilengji was quite a bit older than Nangonglu. Her husband had been Nangonglu's sworn elder brother, so by rights of seniority, Nangonglu should be calling her his elder sister-in-law. How did two people who seemed perfectly respectable fall into such a sordid affair? As he lost himself in thought, Henry. Henry might win comment of the day. As he lost himself in thought, Nangonglu's voice floated over from the great fire. When Moran looked up, those two shameless individuals were going at it in a brand new position. Nangonglu was goading her. If you want it, call me Gaga. Wait, what? Moran was gobsmacked. You can do that? Qilengji was plainly much older than him. How could she call him Gaga? Taishenjun had obviously underestimated Nangonglu's abilities, while crediting Qilengji's pride too much. This woman had been provoked past the point of endurance. She gasped and moaned, and she panted with a mote of hesitation. Gaga, don't tease me. Oh, man. Man, if I was Qilengji, I would have vaporized long ago, but that would have done it. If by some miracle I was still standing, I would be fleeing the set, fleeing the country. I would be gone. Moran's skin was as thick as a city wall, but even he couldn't help but blush. At the same time, Chuaning's long eyelashes trembled lightly against his palms, almost as though he knew of the warm itch in Moran's heart and sought to soothe the tingle in his bones with this tiny movement. But his lashes were too light and soft. How could it be enough to dispel that itch? This half-hearted relief seemed only to intensify it. Moran stared absently at the nape of the man in front of him. In the dimness, a light, unexpected flush, the hue of peach blossoms, seemed to pinken that pale skin. Heart beating like a drum, Moran blinked. He didn't dare look longer and lowered his gaze. Beneath his lashes, his pupils were the black of burnt ash, still smoking with heat. Layer over layer of fiery sparks smoldered beneath that darkness. It would take but a single breath from Chuanning, saturated with desire, for those embers to spark to life, for an entire grassland to go up in a roar of orange flame. Moran felt a sharp twinge of regret. If only he'd been half as creatively malicious as Nangonglu in his past life. If only he'd witnessed this brand of bullying earlier, then he would doubtless have fucked Chuanning senseless, rendered this aloof man a panting mess beneath him, and made Chuanning call him Gaga. That's so gonna happen. It then occurred to him that, in this lifetime, Chuanning had indeed once called him by this moniker. In fact, he'd even called him Shiga. It was just that Moran hadn't known Chiasini's true identity at the time, so he'd thought that little Shidi of his was only a little Shidi. Heat flared within his chest as he recalled this now. His reckless desire, it seemed, knew no bounds. Despite understanding perfectly well that it was impossible, he couldn't help fantasizing. He pictured Chuanning lying on the bed, damp strands of hair stuck to his sweat-sheened forehead, phoenix eyes narrowed at Moran, a gaze filled with indignance and stubborn reserve, all burned away by the flames of desire into a slight, dewy redness at the corner of his eyes. His lips slightly parted, as if fighting the urge to bite them closed. But in the end, they'd part again, as he called in a hoarse, tearful voice, Shiga. Moran felt the breath run out of him. All 72 cities are on fuego, and we are still distracted. At some point, he had no idea when, he'd let go of Chuanning. The remaining rational piece of him must have realized that continuing to cover Chuanning's eyes so intimately would tempt him into committing some disgraceful act. Passionate love was impossible to restrain, and Moran had tasted of this fruit too many times before. He knew firsthand the exquisite ecstasy of its flavor. Shuanglin turned to look at him. His cheeks were pink, but his chin was unconsciously lifted, and his eyes shone bright and haughty. What's wrong? Moran flicked a glance at his lips, then cleared his throat softly and turned his face aside. It's nothing. After their lovemaking was over, Nangonglu stroked Qilongji's hair and asked lazily, Have you asked your sect leaders, have you asked your sect's elders to consider how they want to proceed? Qilongji blinked open her charming eyes. Proceed with what? Look at you. That's a different person talking. Look at you. You know what I'm talking about, yet here you are playing coy with me, said Nangonglu. It's the same old thing. Didn't you tell me after you became the sect leader we should merge Jangdong Hall into Rufang Sect? Oh, is that what it was? Qilongji smiled. Don't be so hasty. The sect leader's ring hasn't yet grown warm on my hand. But you should make haste. Once our two sects become one, I'll appoint you the head warden of Rufang Sect. Tens of thousands will be at your beck and call. Nangonglu reached out to fondle her waist again, as if he couldn't help himself, but Qilongji appeared less than pleased. Though her face was still sweetly flushed, she reached out to stop him. It wasn't easy to rise to the position of sect leader, and you won't even let me stay here a bit longer? What good is it to be the head warden? You still won't officially marry me and bring me home as the madam of Rufang Sect? You know Sayer's temper. There's no way he'd accept it if I remarried. Nangonglu sounded embarrassed. Consider our positions. Marriage isn't just a personal matter. Who knows what sort of vulgar gossip we'd be subjected to? Vulgar gossip? Fury rose in Qilongji's eyes as she raised her head to glare at him. So you're afraid of what people will say? You think I'm not? Have you forgotten how my husband died? Did you think it was a simple matter to take his place as Jangdong Hall's sect leader? Nangonglu, you know how I felt about you since we were young. Yes, don't be angry. Don't be angry. Says the man who's one of the most vicious misogynists in all of fiction. Of course I'm angry. Back then, you only married that bitch, Rongyan, so your dead bastard of a father would name you his successor. I had no other prospects. I married my Shishiong. Now we're finally freed of both of them, yet after we merge our sects, you'd make me a warden? Also, God, don't be angry, don't be angry. I mean, not to resurrect a dead meme or anything, but Alexa, play Mad Woman by Taylor Swift. If we're gonna keep going with the angry feminist anthems that are exquisitely written, play Mad Woman by Taylor Swift. Lingji, forget it. Whoever wants that post is welcome to it, but you have to marry me. Qilongjing's tirade continued. That son of yours, Nangongsa, he's out of control, just like that bitch Rongyan. You really intend to let him inherit the position of sect leader? People can talk about it for as long as they like. One of us is a widow and the other a widower. What's wrong with us getting married? Whom are we harming? Not only do I intend to marry you, afterward I'll bear you 10 little gongja. Nangonglu, do you want our children or the little dog that bitch left behind? Ooh. That's the end of the chapter. Woo. We're on page 193 for chapter 171, which is called Shizun. Rufang Sect has fallen. Yeah, it's been on fire. How late are we running? Hang on. Only... Yeesh. A bit. But you know, it's not my fault. It's her fault. This is Meatbun's fault. I take no blame in babbling on for an excessive amount of time when she drops things like everything she's dropped on me in one sit down. All right? So, chapter 171. Shizun, Rufang Sect has fallen. Nangonglu was backed into a corner. He could only wheedle. There, of course I care for you, but this matter requires careful consideration. Let's do as we agreed. First, As sect leader, you'll announce that Jangdong Hall will come under the auspices of Rufang Sect. After the two sects are merged, I won't, Qilingji claimed, the rims of her eyes red. Back then, I trusted you, and what happened? You turned around and married Rongyan. I won't settle this time. Give me a definite answer. Will you marry me or not? He's just trying to get her fucking He's like, oh yeah, give me your sect and your land, and I'll totally marry you, yeah. Watching him hesitate, she grew even angrier. Nangonglu, how long are you going to beat around the bush? She growled. I killed my husband with my own hands, all for us. But you? Don't you even have the guts to nod? At this point, everyone watching gasped in horror. Shui Jingyang was no exception. He murmured to Madame Wang, she murdered Jangdong Hall's former sect leader? Within the space of minutes, Jangdong Hall, too, had fallen from grace. The previous sect leader was dead, but many of his subordinates remained in the sect, including 2 of his brothers. They flew at Qilingji, holding nothing back. You killed Daga? How could you? Even if he was a decade older than you, he treated you so well. You poisonous woman. Return my brother's life. Fighting broke out on one side while the blazing inferno raged on the other. Shocking scenes unfolded from the broken scroll, one by one. In the brilliant glow, painfully sordid events, never meant to see the light of day, were bared before the world. Nor were these affairs limited to Rufang Sect. Oh, shit! Shuanglin out here dropping a burn book, you know what I'm saying? But like a backed up burn book. A burn book with receipts. Nearly all the sects of the upper cultivation realm were implicated. I have a hellish scratch on my leg. Countless renowned figures and major cultivators, all gathered at Rufang Sect for the wedding, appeared in the leaping flames. After Jangdong Hall followed Wubei Temple, Huohuang Pavilion, and Baton Manor. Even the lofty, untouchable Kunlun Tashui Palace received this treatment. Major scandals involving senior disciples and elders lit up the night sky. Nangonglu supplemented his own memories with the memories of others that he had collected from far afield, displaying them all starkly before the crowd. There was even an old record of Nangonglu scheming with the previous sect leader of Wubei Temple, Master Tianshan. Great Master, the spiritual mountain competition is tomorrow. I must come out on top. My father already thinks I'm stupid. If I yield to my younger brother's sword in the competition, I'll really have no future as a sect leader. Nangonglu, needn't panic. Have you mastered all the techniques in the scroll this old monk gave to you before? I have. Master Tianshan twirled his beard and smiled. Then you have nothing to worry about. Just focus your efforts on executing the techniques from that scroll, and your little brother won't stand a chance. Still confused, Nangonglu replied. This humble one is slow-witted and begs Master to explain more clearly. That cultivational scroll contains secret techniques your brother Nangonglu himself invented. He diligently poured his blood, sweat, and tears into refining them in order to make a name for himself at the spiritual mountain competition. Ah, Nangonglu was taken aback. If Shudi created these techniques, how can I use them to defeat him? Master Chen-chen's lips curved in a small smile. Nangonglu is arrogant. After developing these techniques, he shunned his sectmates and holed himself up in a cave to train day and night. Even if he claims himself as the originator of these techniques, who would believe him? Nangonglu stared. But you're different. Nangonglu. Master Tianchen continued, serene. 4 of Tashui Palace's elders and I will serve as the judges. As long as we attest that we witnessed you master these techniques and you insist that you acquired them through your own meticulous study, then it matters not how eloquent your little brother's claims. His reputation will bear the stain of stealing his older brother's cultivational techniques. Once his name is tarnished and he is criticized by all, he'll never escape his fate. Even if he wins the competition, what use will it be? I see. Nangonglu's eyes widened as if he'd suddenly seen the light. He cupped his fist in his hand respectfully. Many thanks to the great master for his guidance. Once this humble one rises to power, I will assuredly pledge an allegiance with the great master. In the future, Rufang Sect and Wubei Temple will enjoy centuries of friendship. That long scroll tumbled onward, illuminating the night and gouging wounds for everyone to see, into all whom Shuanglin loathed, all who wronged him. The great blazing images even lured a handful of commoners from around Rufang Sect, who joined the cultivators in watching these hidden scandals that were like foul lice swarming beneath sumptuous robes. When the rift to the ghost realm had opened, Shuanglin had said with a brilliant smile, "I'd like to destroy every single one of your hearts." Only now did they understand what he'd meant. Under the name of Shuanglin Elder, Nangonglu had been hibernating within Rufang Sect for years. He hadn't merely planned to destroy Rufang Sect's 72 cities and centuries of prestige. He intended to destroy every person he detested. Everyone who had turned their backs on him, blackened his name, and forced him onto a path of no return, all for their own selfish gain. His elder brother Nangonglu had been only the first head to roll on these sacrificial grounds of vengeance. Not one among the parade of sect leaders and elders who followed him could escape the fires of judgment. It didn't matter who they were, as long as they had offended Shuanglin. Well, that doesn't sound familiar in the slightest. I don't. Standing amidst that endless night pierced by flames, Chu Wanning recalled the young man from Lo Shenshen's memories. That young man, covered in blood, who had grinned as he said, "There was a man from Linyi whose heart died at 20. A young man with unparalleled spiritual talent, an exceptional prodigy who'd never been afforded a fair chance, who had been schemed against, conspired against, and pushed away by his own family. The techniques he'd poured his heart into had been stolen, and the people who'd stolen them levied false accusations against him, calling him the thief. The kind of absurdity that was... His heart died at 20. When they'd met Shuanglin via his white chess pieces at Jincheng Lake and Peach Blossom Springs, he'd said he was a ghost who'd crawled out of hell to demand the blood of the living. Chu Wanning watched the chaotic scene before him. The sects of the upper cultivation world had fallen into complete disarray. The saying, "monkeys scatter when the tree falls," applied to more than just Rufang Sect. Shuanglin had used the latter half of his life as dry tinder to kindle this fire of vengeance, and he'd succeeded. A massive explosion rocked Rufang Sect's 7th city, the Shadow City. Purple fire streaked toward the sky, so bright the onlookers closed their eyes against it. Yuangshi's sword-straight brows immediately drew together. "This is bad." She had already turned her sword toward the Shadow City when Nangonglu grabbed her. Within this brief interval, his haughty features had grown haggard. He seemed on the verge of collapse. "Yeah! Surprised he's standing. Surprised he's coherent. Surprised he's not just curled in the fetal position and babbling incoherently." Yet still he gripped Yuangshi's shoulder tightly and rasped, "Don't go. The demonic spirits under the Golden Drum Tower will escape. Rufang Sect suppressed thousands of spirits there over the centuries. If they manage to break the seals and come into the world..." Yuangshi trailed off, shuddering with fear. "What can you do if you go?" Nangonglu said. Yuangshi, you've done enough for Rufang Sect." Gaze distance, Nangonglu raised a hand as if to wipe a speck of mud from Yuangshi's cheek, but in the end he aborted the gesture. "Don't waste your energy," he said. "Securing Golden Drum Tower requires the combined strength of the sect leader and 10 elders. To go alone would be a death sentence." "I know, but still..." Yuangshi paused, her expression full of pain. "Even if it's suicide, how can I do nothing? If Golden Drum Tower falls and those spirits descend upon the land, everyone will blame Rufang Sect. You. Do you think if the Golden Drum Tower remains standing, Rufang Sect will escape blame?" Nangonglu laughed, the blood at the corner of his mouth lending a bleakness to his smile. "Don't be stupid. Rufang Sect is lost. But you need to stay alive, okay? I really..." Nangonglu closed his eyes, his lashes trembling and his voice sticking in his throat. I really don't want anyone else to die for this sect. It's not worth it. Lit by the surging flames, Yewangshi stared fearfully at Nangonglu. She was still considering her reply when she heard the rumble of a tower collapsing from the direction of the Shadow City. She turned to see thousands of brilliant streaks of white flying from the lofty Golden Drum Tower. They split in all directions, vanishing into the fathomless night. All the color drained from Yewangshi's face. Golden Drum Tower is falling. With a thunderous boom, the ground beneath their feet began to split. As those spirits crowded for centuries beneath Golden Drum Tower returned to walk the earth, a blinding beam of blood-red light coalesced to form a colossal fish with a tail like a crimson lotus in bloom. With an earth-shattering roar that shook the leaves on trees 1,000 miles away, the huge fish sped toward the East Sea. In an instant, the magnificent tower exploded into 1,000,000 tile fragments. The giant demon's slipstream bowled over a number of cultivators flying too close to the tower on their swords. They tumbled into the apocalyptic fire and were burned to ash before they could open their mouths to scream. What was that? The gun! Another listener took offense at this. Clutching their own sword tightly against the force of the gale, they snapped, What do you mean again? Isn't one monster enough? Who said again? I said that's the gun! The fiercest beast from ancient times. Legend has it that Rufang Sect's first leader, Nangonglu, made the East Sea surrender that monstrous gun to him, then built Golden Drum Tower to imprison it. Who would have thought? Who would have thought the legend was actually true? Although the ferocious beast had escaped, it had yet to fully recover its strength. Wary of cultivators after being trapped beneath Golden Drum Tower for centuries, it fled toward the East Sea with all haste, leaving billowing gusts in its wake. The consequences were disastrous. Apocalyptic fire soared scores of feet higher as the winds fanned the flames. Areas previously untouched by the blaze instantly began to burn. So, apocalyptic flames turning out to be a deeply apt name for them. Shui Jingyong was a veteran of the battlefield. He immediately cried at the top of his lungs, "Run! Everybody run!" Shards of brick rained down around him as he sent the iron fan carrying himself and Madame Wang skimming out of the conflagration. The remaining cultivators fled in every direction. Some, like Qi Lenji, caught up in a vicious, unrelenting battle with elders from her own sect, were unable to react in time and were swallowed by the flames. Or perhaps they had no desire to do so. Even as the inferno overwhelmed them, their eyes, glinting with hatred, were still riveted on their opponents. Just like that, they vanished into ash. Nangonglu leapt onto Nao Baijin's back and held out a hand to Yewangshi. "Get up here, hurry!" He turned to look at Chuanning nearby. "Zongshe, you too. It'll be too heavy. You go ahead." But Moran made a decision on the spot. "Go," he cried to Nangonglu. "I'll carry Shizin out on my sword." The great fire was drawing nearer, flames speeding toward them in leaps and bounds. Nangonglu swore under his breath and wrapped his arms around Yewangshi to secure her from behind. The two astride the Fey Wolf's back quickly dwindled to nothing in the vast darkness. Trees toppled one after another. The tangerine grove emitted loud popping noises as it burned, the unexpected sweetness of citrus filling the air. There was no time to waste. Moran summoned his oath-bound sword and fled with Chuanning toward lands the inferno had yet to catch. We keep bringing up tangerines! Behind them, Rufang Sect in all its centuries of glory, the epitome of the elite, privileged, and upper class, suffered the same fate as its soaring colonnades and magnificent grassy fields. Amidst the surging tide of flames, it perished in the course of a single night. That was the end of the chapter. We're on page 201 for chapter 172, which is called Shizun Doesn't Eat Children. And I feel like we know that about him, so I'm going to do my freaking best to buckle down and get through this. Although, hang on, let me skip a little bit ahead. Now I have to do math. Wait. We have, hang on, page math, hang on. We have about 100 pages left. Oh, no. So then I think I did math wrong originally when I was trying to figure out the chapter numbers that go in the description. And I was thinking we would have to read 172 to get to like page 206 or something. Oh, no, excuse me. Longer than that. It's like a good 9-10 pages in order to get to 50. But if there's like, because we have Thursday and then we have next Tuesday, and that's 50 pages each. And it's already a little after 5. So actually, and this is, not gonna lie, a decent place to stop. Because it feels like a bit of an end point on everything going up in flames. So, I will amend the note in the description about which chapters we got to. But that is where we actually have to stop for today. So my apologies if the next chapter has like some ridiculous bullshit happening. Because turns out I was farther along than I thought we were. So, Jesus Christ. There's like, this opens up a whole other thing. Just a whole other arena for theories and trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. I am bothered by the lack of motive for who the hell did this to Moran, presuming the recent theory that Moran has is accurate. And considering we're nearing about halfway through the entire series, it may very well be. It's not comforting to not have a motive, because it's like, have any kind of why would somebody do this? There are a couple of things that you could kind of guess. If somebody was doing this to Taisha and June, then maybe they were hoping to put a good Taisha and June through what Taisha and June did, but that seems a bit convoluted, and you don't really have a guarantee that Taisha and June would turn out any differently than how he was in, the OG universe. So that seems like a deeply inefficient plan that could very easily go awry. But then, so maybe Taisha and June going good or continuing to be evil had no bearing, and like, it doesn't matter because the person who did this is going to get the most amount of revenge on Taisha and June possible. Which, not gonna lie, end stage Shui Meng from the OG universe is not a water bitch. Son of a bitch. I keep coming back to that. That keeps being like the thing. Shimei is still the only water bitch we know of. But unless he didn't die in the OG universe, he couldn't. Although, man, wouldn't that just be the actual worst for the one of High Tongue Blossoms notwithstanding, one of the reasons as to why Moran became Taisha and June was the whole thing that happened around Shimei and the barrier and Chu Wanning presumably not doing a thing to lift a finger to help Shimei, and then Shimei dying. That was really the beginning of the end right there. So that would be particularly awful if Shimei didn't even fucking die. And, yeah, okay. That would suck. I'm still, I've been going up and down and all around all over the course of this stream, and now I'm back to eyeing Shimei a little bit. Now I'm back to he hasn't been fully ruled out yet, because if we can drop lore like hopping from AU to AU, then Shimei not actually dying is on the table. This is going to bug me. But that is it for this stream. I have to go. Jesus Christ. I'm just going. I've rambled so much this stream. I am just going to go and maybe come back with a brain cell for her to obliterate again on Thursday. I hope you had a time. I'll see you in a couple of days to have another time. In the meantime, please take care of yourself. Holy God, please take care of yourself. And I'll see you on Thursday. Same time. All right. Okay.